you're out. Okay. All right, so we'll start the meeting with the pledge to the flag, and I'm supposed to mute everyone. And please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We have 11 public in attendance, in addition to the panelists whose pictures you see. Glad you could join us. That's a pretty good turnout for a remote meeting, and we appreciate the effort that it took you to be here. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from our August 24th meeting. Were there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion that they be approved as written? Motion by Trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Minutes are approved. Next order of business is mayor announcements. It's a very busy time in the village office these days. There's a lot of stuff going on, and that means I have quite a number of announcements tonight. First of all, I received a letter of resignation from our treasurer, Mary Lasky. As you know, we were expecting such a letter as she phased out and took on less while Deputy Treasurer Smith took on more. So that resignation is official now. Mary came out of retirement just to help the village because she cared. I want to publicly thank her for all she did for the village, and also personally thank her for all the help she gave me in organizing the village office. A partial list of her accomplishments includes: closed the books and filed the New York State annual reports for 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. Cleaned up more than 100 errors in our financial software that were partially responsible for all those years not being closed in the first place. Standardized our accounting practices to position us to move forward. Totally revamped our budget format to allow us to better understand our finances and track our expenditures. Updated our computer system, including a new server and new email system. Revised our purchasing policy, cleaned up our banking, and refinanced our debt. And that's just a short partial list of all the things she did in her roughly 1 year in the village. She inherited a situation that was rife with problems, and she left us in really great shape. I could never have accomplished all that in so little time without her help, and I miss her in the office every day. So I want to say a big thank you to Mary Lasky, and we will appoint her replacement later tonight. At the request of the Saratoga chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, I am proclaiming the week of September 17th to 23rd as Constitution Week in Ballston Spa. And I will read the proclamation that I signed earlier in the week. Whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Therefore, I, Larry Woolbright, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the Village of Ballston Spa, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Village of Ballston Spa to be affixed this 11th day of September 2020. The laborer job search to replace Dave Brown has successfully concluded, and I'm pleased to announce that Robert Mancini will begin work on Wednesday. We've got a motion later on in the meeting to confirm that appointment under other business. I have requested and received a one-year extension on the Farley grant to October 12th, 2021. As the board will recall, this grant has already accomplished 3 sewer projects this past year. There were 2 additional projects, both on Saratoga Avenue, that were scheduled for this spring and delayed by the COVID pandemic. So we now have an extra year to get those 2 things done. We received 2 quotes for an independent audit of our 2019-20 budget. Teal Becker was the lowest, and I have asked them for a contract to put on the next agenda.
What was the quote?
I'd
7,500.
write it down, 7,500, I think, which was the amount we had budgeted.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
Good.
I received and forwarded to the board structural and environmental reports on 66 Front Street. These studies were authorized by the board last year and then delayed by COVID. And I'll be revising the scope of work on the Tedisco grant to allow us to pay for the recommended structural work out of that grant. There's some stuff that needs to be done pretty quickly, like the retaining wall holding up the sidewalk on Bath Street. So I will do that scope of work as quickly as possible. I received and forwarded to the board the draft final report on the Next Wave Economic Development Plan. Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership is planning a public rollout by the end of the month. I wanted them to wait on that until after they had a chance to receive comments from the board. So I would ask the board, if you do have comments on that draft, to please forward them to Shelby Schneider within the week. And if you don't have Shelby's contact information, you're welcome to send them to me and I'll forward them to her for you. And I also would like to ask if the board wants a public presentation at our next meeting by Shelby. She did a half-hour brief summary presentation to the people who served on the focus groups last week, and I thought it worked pretty well. So I'd be happy to ask her to come and give that to the board if the board would like her to. And if not, she's planning to do another one for the general public, open to anyone who wants to come after the public rollout. And so the board could always attend that also if they wanted.
I don't see the need to make her do it twice. I think the public version seems fine to me.
Well,
Yeah, I
I'd like to
agree.
see it. I'd like to see a presentation that's really directed at what the village needs to do. More to Noah's point, the recommendations that we as a board should take, what actions we should take. Not the same presentation, because I wasn't, I was at the other one. That's the more general presentation of what's in the report. But something specific would be useful.
I'd be okay if that were, an addendum to the report in writing that just got a little bit more specific about some of the what the mechanic. I think maybe this is a conversation we can also have with Shelby about like the extent to which her findings can be reduced to that level of specificity, or whether she's really, she's making broad recommendations, maybe her view is that it's really for us to figure out what the mechanics are to sort of animate and implement those recommendations. So I guess I would, I don't know. I mean, hopefully her presentation to the public will include the specific things that the village should do. I don't know that we need to make her do it twice. It just seems like a lot. And, God bless Shelby, but her half-hour presentations tend to go for an hour and a half.
This last one did not. I was pleased to see.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a chance to thoroughly go through the report, and really until I do, I'd have to formulate some questions if I have any, regarding it. So, yeah, I'm not sure, there's really a need to schedule it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Might be good to leave it for one more meeting and make it more about us talking about the contents and asking questions rather than a formal presentation.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I will ask her what she thinks about all of these ideas, and any of you who have occasion to talk to her, to ask her other questions or give her other feedback, are welcome to have that same conversation with her. And then maybe we'll decide at the next meeting whether we want her to come in at the first meeting in October. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to give you a parking enforcement update. As you know, we've been trying to fill the parking enforcement positions. We advertised it on the website and the Facebook page. We did get some interest. So far, Chief Bush has interviewed 8 people who expressed an interest in the positions, but has not recommended that anyone be hired. So the search continues. And if anybody on the board or in the public knows anyone who's looking for part-time work, tell them please to contact Chief Bush. We do have 2 positions at 10 hours a week each. I forget the salary, it's fairly minimal, that we're trying to fill. The birdhouses, I've been asked to announce that the birdhouses are coming down in mid to late October, and I assume everybody has seen the new banners that went up for Labor Day, honoring our first responders. Another piece of bad news that I think the board already knows is I received a letter of resignation from Sherry Canarak due to some health issues that she's having. She expressed a great deal of regret in having to leave because she says she really enjoys her position in the village. And I'm very sorry to lose her because she's been an excellent employee and she's done a wonderful job for us. So it's a very sad situation. She's expressed a willingness to stay on part-time as her situation allows to help her replacement get up to speed. And I appreciate that, and we'll take her up on it and take advantage of that. The search for her replacement has started. Deputy Treasurer Smith has been reviewing and interviewing. That process has been complicated by the fact that it's a civil service position, and the civil service list was last updated in January of 2019. So a typical response for Deputy Treasurer Smith has been, oh, I got a job last year and I'm not looking for a job anymore. But we have to deal with the civil service stuff because it's on the list. So hopefully we'll find somebody for that soon. I wanted to give you a progress report on our water meters and water meter readings. I think everybody knows that the village has been concentrating on that recently, trying to get that stuff under control and up to date. In August, I asked for a list of all accounts for which water meter readings had not received. That had not been received. That list totaled 514 accounts, roughly 20% of our customers. 130 of those were first-time misses. So according to our code, we take no action if somebody misses one reading. 117 additional ones had missed between 2 and 4 readings. I sent those 117 people a letter the first week in September, asking them to read their meters or send us a photograph of their meter, and informing them that in their absence to do so, we would send somebody to read their meter and charge them $100, which is what the code says we do. So far in the first week since I sent the letter out, we've received 25 of them, so that's a good start, and they're still coming in at the rate of 2 or 3 a day. So hopefully we'll get most of those caught up without having to take more action. And that left 267 that had missed more than 4 readings. Some had missed as many as, I think 22 was as long ago as our records went. So that would be
Do
11.
you have a sense of like what the breakdown of the services are? Are these mostly commercial, residential? Like what's the?
No, I don't. I've been dealing with trying to get them read rather than trying to analyze who they are.
It's mostly residential.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julian.
There are some
What
commercial
I did
there.
was I thought giving DPW a list of 267 places to go read the meters would probably overwhelm them. And so I divided those into 1-page lists based on priority. I gave the first list to them on August 21st. That included 33 addresses that had not had a reading in 16 or more cycles, so 8 or more years. 23 of those have been read so far, and the other 10 have been posted with a letter on the door. I gave DPW a second list on September 2nd of 28 additional addresses, of which 16 have been resolved so far, and the other 12 will be posted with the letter tomorrow. We've got a 2-letter system. The first one is a polite letter asking them to call and make an appointment for somebody to come by. And the second one, which is going out tomorrow to the first group, is more forceful and pushy. So at this rate, I've got somebody right now working 5 hours a day on this, 5 days a week. So we're making pretty good progress pretty quickly. I'm gonna have to pull them off in a couple of weeks for paving. We need all hands on deck for paving, and that takes 2 weeks. After paving is done and the retaining wall at Eagle Mat Lee, which is also, we ordered the block for that some while ago and it should be ready any day now. We're gonna need to take them off for a few weeks, but after those projects are done, we should be able to increase the amount of effort to multiple people working on it. And I'm hoping to get all of these cleaned up one way or the other by midwinter, let's say. As far as the water meter replacement effort, to date, we've replaced 220 water meters. We have an additional 37 that we know are confirmed to be broken. So there are 37 more on the list to be replaced. So 220 out of 257 is pretty significant progress. And I hope to get those other 37 taken care of fairly quickly here. Plus we have 14 users with no meters because of plumbing issues, and that's a more complicated thing that's going to involve having them hire plumbers. So total then that's 51, 220 done and 51 yet to go. Last announcement, as the board knows, we've been working on reducing our utility costs along with all sorts of other fixed costs that are somewhat controllable. So the first step was the new street lights. I think that project is finished now. I think all of the new lights are in, although there may be a neighborhood or two that I don't go into much at night that they're still working on. But that's going to save us quite a bit on our street lighting bill. The second step was enlisting a broker to find a gas provider for us. We did that last year. It saved us quite a bit of money, and we've got that on the agenda tonight to approve for a second year. And the third step is working on the electric bill. We have discussed the community solar concept. The deputy treasurer has been talking with several community solar providers. 2 gave her proposals, and I asked that the one that looked the best develop a formal contract for our review. So we should have that shortly, and I'll get it to you for your review and hopefully put it on the agenda for the next meeting. The estimated savings on that is in excess of $5,000 a year. So altogether with these 3 projects, we've saved at least a 1 or 2% budget increase from needing to happen. So that every little bit is good progress.
Hey, Larry?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of completeness on the energy savings front, you know, the by far best bang for the buck when it comes to energy savings is efficiency. Way better than
Right.
anything that we've done so far. So obviously our buildings are horribly leaky and inefficient.
Yep.
So when we get around to that, you know, it'll be money very well spent.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And as the clerk can attest, I have expanded my thermostat wars from my home to the village. I turn them down in the winter, they turn them up, and opposite in the summer. So yeah, thanks. We're aware of that. All right, that's all for the announcements. So we'll move on to old business, and I'm not aware of any old business tonight. Moving on to new business. Could I have a motion that the Ribbon Cafe, in conjunction with the Molly Wilmot Radiology Oncology Center, be authorized to host a cancer survivor retreat / fundraiser on 9/26/2020 in the alleyway adjacent to the cafe on Prospect Street? And I note that a plan for following COVID guidelines and proof of liability insurance have been submitted to the clerk. Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Make that motion.
That was Trustee Shaw made the motion. And Trustee Cormos second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion that the budget transfers to the fiscal 21 budget be approved?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick, second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Raymond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to renew our gas contract for another 12 months using the same broker, that is Upstate Utilities, but a new supplier? That's Plymouth Rock Energy, at a fixed rate of 0.3674 per therm for a term beginning December 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Raymond. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Fitzpatrick, I think.
No, Liz.
Oh, Cormos. Okay, second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, nay. That motion carries. Could I have a motion to approve the agreement with Reamer, Wallens, Gold, and Minot labor attorneys for professional services for a term beginning on November 1st, 2020 and ending October 31st, 2023?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Shaw. I want to really thank Trustee Fitzpatrick for her work in coordinating this search and communicating with the firms and with us. And I want to thank Trustee Shaw for participating in the interviews. It was quite a thorough process, and hopefully it will bring us good results. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, nay. That motion carries. Drum roll, please. Could I have a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment of Julia Smith as village treasurer effective immediately?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing. You know, when we first interviewed Julia a long time ago, before you, Larry, or Christine or Liz were involved, and remember Sean and I, you know, the last treasurer had up and left pretty unceremoniously, and we were kind of bringing in a whole group of people. And I remember interviewing Julia and thinking, wow, you know, this woman has a lot of potential. She was incredibly sharp. You know, obviously was there for all the right reasons. But, you know, just a little early in her career, frankly, to take on such a, trying to use expletives here, but such a mess.
It was a daunting task.
It was a daunting task, but you know, when we found Mary, who you know had that level of kind of experience to really take the bull by the horns, you know, it made so much sense to bring in Julia to start to learn the business of the village, and really, it's been a pleasure to watch you grow into this position, Julia, and you know, I have no doubt that you're going to be an incredible asset to this community for a very long time. So thank you for all the hard work. You know, all the stuff that Larry listed off that was accomplished under Mary's watch, you know, I know you had a big part of. So, you know, this is a good day for the village, and hopefully a good day for you. So thank you.
And I have to say that in the year or year plus that Julia has been with us, having started out as someone with no municipal experience whatsoever. She's come a long way. She's worked very closely with Mary. She's worked very closely with EFPR, and she's learned a whole lot, and she still is. She's taken advantage of every training opportunity there's been, and we will continue to do that, and she will continue to work with EFPR, and I think her learning has been impressive. So I'm very optimistic that she'll rise to the occasion and be a great treasurer for years to come. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Don't get a swelled head, though.
Almost there.
Okay, for just one night.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Can I vote twice?
Motion carries. Congratulations, Treasurer Smith.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to declare 2 vehicles surplus? The details are listed on your agendas. They're both 1987 Ford vehicles, and they were both recently replaced in the fire department. Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor, say
You're
aye.
old.
Yeah, not as old as we are. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. Next is a motion to adopt the sexual harassment and discrimination prevention policy developed by trustee Fitzpatrick based on NIMER guidelines. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Trustee Fitzpatrick, once again, you did a tremendous amount of work on this. We really appreciate it. I'd be happy for you to address the board if you have anything you want to say.
I do, if I may. Okay. In addition to, this is a change, this is a revision of, we have had a sexual discrimination and harassment policy. This is sort of a revision in accordance with NIMER. The other thing that has been done is we have developed a policy to do the training on this every year. There will be some training has begun already. There will be a training program this year that will be administered by Ms. O'Connor. All of this training this year will be online because of COVID, and also because it's a very good train. It's a good training program. The one thing that I will say to you is that the state has come to its senses, or whatever, however I want to put it, and this training will, any employee of the village or anybody with a relationship, a contractual relationship with the village, and Terry has the whole list of who we need to have this done, like everybody on the boards and the, planning, zoning, will only have to take training once. As long as you may recall last year, and I don't blame people, there was a lot of grumbling. Some people were required to take this training. For the worst case was somebody who had to take it 4 times. So if you have taken it through another venue, or you have taken it with another employer, as long as you are able to provide something to Terry in writing from your employer, from your another effort that you do, a certification, then you will only be required, you can use that for 2020. Okay, so this is important for example, some of our folks who are employed with us are also employed elsewhere. Okay, like I know, Sean, you do this. I'm sure you've had this training, or will have a training sometime in 2020. So
Every year.
yeah, you would just produce an email from, I don't know, your human resources or something, and provide it to Terry, and then you fulfilled your requirements. So that is, I think, a very good thing. And the training it'll all be online, and we're going to start out with, there'll be a memo from Larry to all people concerned, and instructions that Terry has, so that everybody can take this online. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item requested by Trustee Cormos. She wants to discuss water and sewer issues. I'll turn the floor over to her.
Thank you. You've already discussed some of the issues which I'm bringing up tonight. The Village of Ballston Spa faces from $3.5 to $5 million of infrastructure replacement and repair for our water, sewer, and stormwater systems over the next 5 years. This includes an immediate need to repair or replace our John Street water tower, which could cost from $1 to $2 million, and our sewer system is in desperate need of replacement or relining. Our current water and sewer fees should provide a large part of these funds, allowing us to avoid bonding the whole amount or having to increase our rates. As the mayor described, the last few years we've been undertaking a program to replace broken water meters with, actually Bob Kavanaugh told me we replaced 260. That's a little higher than the number you had. But
Yeah,
maybe
I questioned him on that figure, and he went back and double checked it for me because I thought it was too high, and he came back with 220 this afternoon.
Yeah, so a good number, and there's about another 150 or so he estimates that need replacing, although I think you've probably identified more recently. The village pays for the cost of the replacement meter. This has helped us collect the correct amounts from these identified users. The reason I started looking into the water billing and sewer billing system was actually on the behest of the Revenue Committee, because we wanted to take a look at maybe if there was a different structure that we could propose that might be a little fairer to the people that use small amounts of water. So I went through, I've been going through for the last couple of months, the water bills, and as the mayor knows, I discovered that we had 20% not reporting, which is significant. And you know, and per our current code, that all they pay is the minimum rate. And we don't know if they're just using 30,000 gallons or less, or they might be using more, which means those folks aren't paying their fair share of the water.
I believe if they haven't read their meters, we charge them their average historical usage if it exceeds 30,000 gallons.
Yes, but I think the reality is everybody gets charged 30 gallons according to the water reports. Everybody that was estimated was charged 30. No, I did not see anybody get estimated higher than that based on, I believe it's just too much of a burden for Bob or the staff to go back and calculate what they used to pay. So anyways, that's beside the point. There are accounts that are commercial accounts that could be using more water, and we should collect the right amount of water. By code, you're supposed to report your water utilization. So I actually would like to propose that we add a penalty fee. Right now, as the mayor described, you know, they're sending somebody out and charging $100 to read a meter, which seems a bit excessive to me. I would rather have us, you know, when all the cards get sent in, that we have a fee if you don't report your water readings. And that fee should increase for repeat offenders. The owners, which are now, you know, being informed by the mayor this last month, you know, should be informed that this fee will exist at the next cycle if they don't report their meter. And we can set that fee for $50, $100 or whatever. In addition, any property owners that discover their meters are damaged or broken will be, you know, not charged that non-reporting fee if their meter's still broken and hasn't been repaired yet by DPW. But if they don't register that they have a broken meter by February of next year, and they don't report, they'll be charged the $50 fee for not reporting, and they'll be charged for the replacement of the meter. And that's the way I think we can encourage folks. I think just charging them for a high fee for reading a meter, you know, I think a penalty is more appropriate than, you know, the DPW getting slammed with a lot of people they have to go read right now.
Can I interject?
I'd also like to propose, if I may,
Not.
that we have a lower charge for 1 and 2 family residences to read the meter, because I believe there are people who haven't read their meter because they can't get to it. Bob described some meters being in crawl spaces, or it may be a disabled individual. So to charge $100 to go read their meter is I think, a burden for those individuals. I proposed some language changes to our code, which I provided the board and Stephanie, and I'd like us to think about them. And this is a proposal I'd like to make. There are some other questions that I have about the water billing system. I've requested a report from the village, one more report, which I'm awaiting, and to answer some other questions that I found in the water bills. So that's about it.
Did you get sign off on these ideas from the Department of Public Works and from Bob Kavanaugh?
I discussed some of the issues with Bob. No, I'm happy to do so. This is a proposal. I wanted to pass it first to the board to see if they're interested. Clearly, 20% not reporting is a significant issue. I'm glad you've started working on it now. But it's been, as you said, some of these folks haven't been reporting for 20 years.
Yep. I think because DPW is intimately involved in this, and because Bob has been coordinating our efforts in this area, they should have an opportunity to provide feedback before we take any action.
Yeah,
So-
well, I don't think we can
Clearly,
take
I don't propose taking action tonight. I
No.
propose us considering this and taking action potentially at our next meeting.
But what I'm saying is we need to consult with DPW and Bob Kavanaugh before we even discuss this any further.
Well, I don't know about that. Hey, Larry, I don't think that. I mean, just to, I mean, honestly, Larry, you bring things to the board all the time that haven't been discussed fully. So, I think, let's call a spade here. I think that this is worth conversation in as much as there are a couple principles here that I think could be better implemented in the running of this program. And it's not a criticism of anybody, and certainly not of you, Larry. But it was a system that needed a lot of revamping, and this is just a piece of it. Two things that I think we should keep our eye on. One is what we're doing right now is probably unnecessarily burdensome on the time and energy of DPW staff. They might say, oh, no, we can do that. And God bless them for that. But, I agree with Liz that there's no reason to bill somebody $100 to go have somebody read their meter for them. Just set a penalty that makes them read their own stinking meter if they can. But I also think that taking a lot of this specificity out of the code and putting it in policy and leaving it to the discretion of the mayor is probably a good thing to keep in mind, because as you note, Liz, there will be situations where these fees need to be waived, where there are special circumstances, people can make applications, like there needs to be all kinds of wiggle room to make case by case decisions without it. And I think, we just want to be careful about hardwiring too much into law, which is very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, my
Well, no, I'm not
suggestion
quite-
on the law was to have the fees be determined by the board and the circumstances as well.
The second thing is, we made the change a few years ago to change the to make it a progressive as opposed to regressive charge. That is, it used to be that the more you used, the less you paid, as opposed to the other way around, on a per unit basis. It strikes me that there should be some differentiation here based on the volume of water that you're actually using, or based on your service category. It doesn't make any sense to me that a single family, home or even a unit that has its own meter would be charged the same penalty as a large commercial user. Like, that's crazy. So we should think about using a scalpel with respect to the fees and the penalties for basically, neglecting to do your duty. The other thing is, I mean, how much longer are we going to rely on people to self-report this stuff? It's just crazy. I mean, there are people who just can't figure out how to do it for whatever reason. And so we need to have a medium-term plan that, and Larry, I know you're on this, but we should set the horizon at a date certain for when, these meters are going to be replaced. The amount of revenue that we're missing out on is just extraordinary.
The good news is that Bob did tell me that the meters we are replacing are readable from the exterior of a home.
No, I understand, but that's still a small minority of the total meters in the village, and it's going to be a very long time until we actually start.
I think there may be a larger number than we think, because they've been replacing meters not just recently, but for years. They're not the meters that you can read driving by that are radio transmitted with the batteries. There's another meter, which is the one on our home, that has a little black panel on the outside, and they go up with a handheld device pointed at it. It gives them the reading. So I think, Bob said he could get me how many of those we have, but I think we have a significant number. And then we may want to look at replacing the ones that don't have this capability, and, with that type of meter, so that someone from DPW can just walk house to house, collect the data, and be done.
The other thing in your draft that I am uncomfortable with is charging people the first time they don't read the meter. And the reason I'm uncomfortable with that is I know we've got a lot of snowbirds, and my wife and I are getting to the age where we may consider that before too long as well. Those people aren't even here in January. So if they miss 1 meter reading because they're in Florida in January, I don't think we ought to slap them with a big penalty.
Well,
We
what's
can,
the-
we
I-
can modify that, you know,
Right.
second time, whatever, but
this,
we've
this
got
gets to
people.
my, sorry, this gets to my point of how much longer are we going to rely on self-reporting? I mean, it's ridiculous. How much longer are we going to rely on self-reporting as opposed to, you know, having meters in place where those can be read either remotely or from, as Liz was suggesting, you know, from the outside by with a scanner.
Well, just from a practical perspective, it's going to be at least a while before we can have another system implemented.
Well, can it be a sort of not all or nothing proposition? I mean, can we start actually using the technology that we already have deployed?
I think, once again, we need to talk to Jeff and to Bob about what technology we have and how it's used and whether it's accurate and how easy it is and how much of it there is. I mean, I don't know the answers to any of these questions, but they would. So yeah, those are very good questions, but we need to ask the people who know the answers to talk to us about it.
Fair enough.
Okay, any further discussion on this one?
Okay, well, how are we going to proceed? So what's the next step? Who's going to talk to DPW about, to Jeff and Bob? Like even the question of, okay, how many meters do we have that can be read from outside the building and how many have to be reported? I mean, what's the action step to get that done?
I'm perfectly willing to meet with them and discuss these issues if the mayor doesn't want to, or doesn't have the time.
Yeah, I think since you're the one taking the lead on this, you'd be the logical person to go try to find these answers for us. So that would be great.
Okay,
Right.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, our consent agenda tonight is the next item on the agenda. Does any trustee wish any item removed from the consent agenda before we consider it? Hearing none, could I have a motion that the consent agenda be approved?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. That brings us to trustee liaison reports. Does any trustee have a report to present to the board tonight?
I would like, just if I may, about the library. On the consent agenda, there's something for the library. I just wanted to talk about what we're having done. We're having this is the side door to the library. As you face the library on Milton Avenue, it's the door to the left. It's a side door. Because of the problems there, it has been very icy and dangerous. It's a safety issue in the winter in particular. And the library facilities committee is very, very conscientious in working through a whole list that they have. So that's what that's going to be done. It's going to be a roof repair with also some gutters so that we get water going where water should go, which is not right on the path where people can slip and fall. I also want to mention that the library is, as people know, open for business. You can go, you can browse, you know, you can use the computers. There is a limit on an hour that you can use the computers, but their statistics that they're showing for the month of August are almost as much as they were last August, which I think is a very good thing because people really, really miss the library. And the final thing I will say is that they're doing a lot of stuff online, which could, I hope people with small children, you know, they do story time, they do it online, they do Facebook Live, story time. There's a lot of stuff online that might help people who are home with, small children. So that's, we can't do that kind of stuff in the library, but they're doing an awful lot of that stuff online. So check out the Ballston Spa Public Library. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports?
I have some. First of all, thank you, Christine. The Garden Club thanks you for that gutter replacement, because that has been washing out the plants on that side for years, and that'll be wonderful when that gutter is replaced. As far as reports, the Complete Streets workshop has been granted to the Village of Ballston Spa. As some of you remember, you had committed to attend if possible, and that will be probably scheduled for sometime in October. So that will have a professional planning firm running that one-day workshop to educate us about complete streets, with the goal, their goal, CDTC's goal of us potentially implementing a complete streets policy. The linkage grant received 8 proposals, and the committee is embarking on assessing those proposals. CDCTC staff, CDTA staff, CDRPC staff. There are a lot of people that are going to be looking at the proposals, and we hope in another month or so to start the project. Oh no, this I guess would be a little under other business. I just wanted, as an FYI, to remind folks that the temporary signs in the village are, by code, are only allowed for 30 days. I've been seeing lots of election signs from both parties pop up everywhere. I think this is an area where most residents do not realize that the village has a much shorter display time than the surrounding towns, and that if you put up a temporary sign, you're supposed to leave it up for only 30 days, and we are more than 30 days out from the election. I would like to propose for the board's consideration that we potentially lengthen that period of time. Given early voting, absentee voting, 30 days seems a bit short. We could lengthen it to 45 or 60 days and potentially put that on for a change in our code.
Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to other business. I mentioned earlier that Robert Mancini is going to start on Wednesday in DPW. I got his acceptance of the job on Friday. This agenda went out on Thursday, so his appointment was not on the agenda. I'd like to introduce it under other business. And I'd like to ask, please, for a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment of Robert Mancini to the position of laborer in the Department of Public Works to fill the position vacated by the retirement of Dave Brown.
So moved.
That was Trustee Shaw. Motion, second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to public comment.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could I raise another issue of other business,
Sure.
under business? Thank you.
I wasn't sure there was anything else anybody
Yeah,
wanted to know.
it's just something, and please, I'm asking, help remembering this. Maybe I'm just not remembering it. I attended the 9/11 ceremony, which was very nice, and then it was very good. And then I went to the out to dinner in one of the restaurants, and I was talking, and I have been talking to some restaurant folks, and I wanted to ask, and I have heard the comment that it would be helpful if we continue to close Front Street through, even through late October or early November. And I can't remember how long we planned to keep it closed, but I think that there is a feeling it's catching on, and we could, these restaurants are finding it helpful. One of the people I spoke to said she would like to see it permanently, but I don't know if that makes sense. But how long were we intending to close Front Street so that the restaurants could do business? I mean, some of them may get heaters, you know, but they're going to need to know.
I think we left it open-ended, but what I anticipated was that at some point it would get too cold.
Right,
Stop.
right. So I think
So,
maybe we need to talk
I
about
think
that.
when we did the parking agreement with the county, they wanted an end date, and I think I gave them November 1st.
I thought the
I
parking
remember that.
agreement with the county was permanent.
No, that's the other one. The other
Oh,
one.
with the EOC.
EOC.
I intend to request that the county make it permanent, but they denied my request that they make it permanent to start with, and they insisted on an end date, and I gave them November 1st. But I told them then I'll be back in October to tell you that it's worked out well and that we need to make it permanent. And they said, okay, we'll see you then. So
Do we have a sense of whether people are really using those lots up at the county?
I don't know. No, I don't have a sense of that. I do know that there have been no complaints from anybody, including the county. So if they're being used, they're being used appropriately and not causing any trouble.
Yeah, and they'll be used during the tree lighting ceremony and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I know the EOC lots are actively being used. When we went out for dinner, there was a number of cars parked there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my expectation is we'll keep it going as long as we can until it gets too cold.
okay, so how do we communicate that, or do we need, you know, what's the,
Since there's no, express time limit in the resolution that we passed, it might be worth, getting the word out through the BSPPA that, this is not something that has an end date. Maybe,
I mean, we are spending money though.
It's
You know,
only 4 establishments.
No, but I mean, we're spending money for DPW to take the signs down
Yeah.
on the weekend, up and
Yeah.
down. So we don't want to be paying them if they're not going to use it.
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think reasonably, the most it would probably be functional where people would actually want to sit outside is probably mid-October, and at that point, it's going to be too chilly, heaters or not. So, yeah, I guess you have to weigh that cost benefit. If nobody's sitting outside anyways, is it worth having DPW do all that closure and unclosure?
Jeff
Every
touches
day.
base regularly with these establishments because when it rains, they don't want to do it either. And so we don't have to close the street and put up all the barriers. So he's in contact with them pretty much weekly. I will ask him to discuss this issue with them and to come up with a plan.
that's a great idea. Okay, okay,
Thank you.
that works. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I think let them just decide.
Yes, let them decide, and if Jeff is talking to them and he's, on the ground, that's great.
Okay. Any other business? In that case, we'll move on to public comment. We have 12 members of the public. If any of you wishes to make a comment, please raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can speak. I see a hand, Mark Bleck. I'm unmuting Mr. Bleck. Mark, you have to unmute yourself as well.
He did.
I just wanted to know the sign limit. Does that apply to the thank you signs that are in Wiswell Park right now? Is there a limit of how long they can stay up?
I think those signs are municipal signs, and I think the municipality is exempt from its own rules. So we're talking about temporary signs put up by businesses or private individuals.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
I believe that the village or village authorized signs are also not subject to that 30-day limit. So if BSBPA or another group puts out a sign, it's with the authority of the village and that can stay longer.
Okay, I'm scrolling down the list looking for other hands, and I see one, Frank Rossi. I'm unmuting Mr. Rossi.
Thank you, Mayor. Frank Rossi, Jr., 63 Saratoga Ave, Apartment B, Ballston Spa. Just wanted to thank you, Mayor, for your participation in the 9/11 ceremony and congratulate the organizers for a successful event. We impromptu did a live stream of it, and during the event itself, we got about 725 viewers of the live stream and another 1,600 on top of that from people in and now outside the Ballston Spa community. A lot of people gave feedback that they were from the area and watched it from Florida and other points across the U.S. So this memorial and the ceremony attached with it have really gained a lot of attention, and this is something that I'm glad that Gina Morosi, Peter Champagne, and you, among others, have made again an annual event. And let's keep seeing it that. I know next year is the easy one to see forward to the 20-year anniversary of the event, which is going to be tough for a lot of us, obviously. Those round numbers seem to hit harder than the odd numbers, but at the same time, we got to make sure that 21, 22, 23, et cetera, continue the tradition after next year. And again, congratulations to the organizers on such a great event this last week.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi.
I'd like to say that the blue lights were incredible and a very nice addition to the ceremony.
Okay, the next hand I see is Gina Morosi, and I've unmuted Ms. Morosi.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Gina Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane, Ballston Spa. I'd like to second Frank's comment and thank you for not only participating in, but thank you for your support in holding the event. It was a success considering what we're dealing with the pandemic. Frank kind of took some of my material away. We are already planning for the 20th. We've got some great ideas and some different things that we hope to see happen. He did leave out Ray Otten in the committee. I just want to acknowledge Ray.
Raise
And
hand went up as soon as that happened.
and also, Mark Bleck was invaluable, so I'd like to thank him. So stay tuned for the 20th. We'll keep you in the loop and let you know what's going on. Next, I have a question regarding this whole water meter issue. I sat in on meetings for not one, but two committees that were appointed by boards to look into this exact topic. And I'm wondering why we're not relying on our committees that we appointed to come up with the ideas regarding the water meters.
Well, I think actually we implemented a lot of them. I think this is all about actually trying to whether we're following through on the recommendations in an expeditious manner. I think the biggest recommendation was to get the meters, the broken ones, replaced. I seem to remember a certain gentleman who has suggested repeatedly that we make people pay for new meters. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So hopefully we'll take that up at some point. But I'm trying to think of a recommendation that's been made about water meters that we haven't moved forward with. And
I think you misunderstood what I said, Noah. What I said was, why aren't we relying on the committees to come to us with their proposals? The things that I've heard tonight didn't come out of the committee. And I'm sorry about my birds.
We form a new committee or reform one of those committees to come up with another set of recommendations?
No. We have two committees that address.
I'm not sure
The
what committee
revenue-
you're talking about.
I
There
think
wasn't a
she's talking about the revenue committee, and I have an email already drafted and to the revenue committee to reconstitute, to have it meet and review these recommendations and others. So we'll use the revenue committee, and they can, happy to do it.
Well, I sat in on all the meetings of the revenue committee, and I actually went back and listened to those meetings today. And what was proposed tonight was nothing that was suggested by these committees. That's my point.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Morosi. We have a couple other hands, and I'd like to call on Ray Otten. Mr. Otten? I've unmuted you, but you're still,
There we go.
yeah.
I raised my hand not in reference to Frank. It's because I wanted to say something.
Just good timing.
But I'll get back at Frank. Don't worry about that. I also want to thank you for participating in that ceremony the other night. One of the things that I mentioned to you, and since we've had the ceremony, I have been asked by several people or discussed with several people the option of possibly having those towers of light on a permanent basis. As you and I briefly discussed, I think it was probably about 103 seconds maybe that we discussed maybe doing that. I've also found some folks, civic groups, that might be willing to even donate some money towards having a more permanent display of light going up the side of the building. And like you and I had talked, it would have to be closer to the front because of possible expansion of the existing building, et cetera. But what I'd like to propose is, if that's something that the board would be okay with, you know, maybe we could get together a small committee to look into the cost and the actual making it happen. I think it was a dynamic look. I haven't heard anybody say, "Oh, geez, you know, it was sort of nice." You know, everybody seems to be really enthused about it, and I just think that if we can get the right people together to design it and implement it, that and maybe get some financing for it, that it might be a worthwhile thing to do on a permanent basis.
Thank you. I've been thinking about that since we had that discussion the other night, and I do have some reservations. I agree with you that it looked great, but I'm not sure it's the sort of thing that we want to do year round, and I'm afraid it would lose its impact if we did it year round. I think maybe, you know, a week or a month or something in association with the 9/11 probably has a bigger impact than it would have if people saw it every day all year round and it sort of faded from their thoughts. The other concern, and I think Mr. Bleck might be planning to talk about this because his hand is up again, is those were pretty high intensity lights and they drew a pretty lot of power, and I'd be worried about the energy usage issue, as well as the weatherization issue, because I don't think they were exterior lights either. So
yeah, those were not, but if, and there's a lot of ifs.
yeah,
If we were able to find something that, you know, was comparable to it, that wasn't such a high power draw, I don't know that people would get tired of seeing it, because I don't think they get tired of seeing the railroad rails down there either. It's all sort of an enhancement to the display. Again, just my opinion, and you know, we could see if you know, others would be of the same opinion.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I see Mr. Bleck's hand is back up, but he keeps changing. His position in the list keeps changing. Now I can't see him at all.
His hand isn't up anymore.
Oh, there he is. He took it down. Okay, I don't see any more hands at this point. I'm going to zip through the list one more time. Well, no more hands, so thank you for your comments. Mark, Frank, Gina, and Ray, we appreciate them. And thanks once again for your attendance, all of you. We appreciate your being here tonight. Unfortunately, we do have occasion to go into executive session tonight to discuss a potential proposed acquisition of real property. The easiest way for us to do that is for the attendees to leave the meeting and for us to stay here where we can have our discussion. The only thing on the agenda when we come back out of executive session is the adjournment. And I can assure you that we will not do anything else but that adjournment when we come back from executive session. So if everybody would be willing to leave the meeting, that would save us the trouble of getting out of this thing and setting up a whole new meeting to go into. So thank you for being here, and thank you for leaving now. And if the board will stick around for a minute, we can go ahead and get a motion to go into executive session now. Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Raymond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we are officially in executive session.
Well, no, what?
Yep, I'm going to take a minute to,
We have two people still showing.
Hold on.
Harold, would you leave the meeting, please? Gina, do you object to leaving the meeting? I think they both left and just didn't leave.
Wait,
No.
Oh, now Gina's gone. I'm just gonna remove Harold. Okay, I removed Harold. Now we just have the 5 of us, and I'm going to stop the recording. We're back on tape. It is 8:32, and we have come out of executive session, and we're back in public session. And I'm asking for a motion that vouchers number 20-01988 and 21-00250 to 21-00635 be audited, and the meeting adjourned at 8:32. Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Raymond. I got to write this stuff down because Terry's not here. Second.
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos.
Thank you, everybody.
All in favor say aye.
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 Now I can eat dinner.
8:32. All right. Thanks, guys.
okay, thank you.
See you soon.
Aye.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
End meeting for